Good evening, Gothamites. This is Skyhound, also known as Geek Archivist Pierce. Also, before I forget, Happy National Batman Day. If it hasn't been clear on the little intro, I'm actually going over the 1995 film of Batman Forever, one of the two Michael Schumacher directed films, and also a guilty pleasure of mine. Now, considering YouTube tends to be a little bit critical here, in case they try to, I have proof I do own a physical copy of the film. Just for clarification. Now, with that part out of the way, I do recall when I did watch this movie, we didn't have DVDs back in the day. I do recall it was either a VHS or a Laserdisc when I was watching this. And I also recall when they had Tower Records back in the day. If I just unlocked a memory here for you guys, good. Because one of the things I remember back in the day, they used to have not just the soundtrack, but also the single done by Seal. And what I recall is it was one of those like simple envelope type of cardboard holders, like for those single discs. That's what it came in, and it just had the song Kiss from a Rose, as well as the instrumental version of it. That's all I remember from that time. Now, with that being said, since I do have it, let's go over some of the general information, shall we? So let me get to the correct screen. Give me one moment. So, as we can see here, as I already pointed out, it started in 1995. Joel Schumacher is the director. Val Kilmer plays Bruce Wayne and Batman. We have Tommy Lee Jones as Harvey Dent, Two-Face. Jim Carrey as Edward Nygma, also known as the Riddler. Nicole Kidman, who plays Dr. Chase Meridian. Chris O'Donnell, who plays Dick Grayson and Robin. Michael Gough, who plays Alfred Pennyworth. Pat Hingle, who plays Commissioner James Gordon. Followed by Drew Barrymore, who plays Sugar in this one. Debbie Mazar plays Spice. So in this case, these two are the ones who represent the split personality of Two-Face. So you put those names together, you know which side of Two-Face we are addressing. And we also have another character by the name of Fred Stickley, played by Egg Begley, who is uncredited. And we have Tim Burton, who was the original director of the first two Batman films, the one from 1989, and then we got the Batman Returns of 1992. Now, with that part out of the way, I do want to point out here, for those of you guys who have watched some decent YouTube, I guess you could say video essays regarding the Batman films of the 90s, they do mention that the backlash from Returns is what prompted Forever, as well as the sequel, Batman and Robin. One thing I do want to point out here, Chris O'Donnell. He was in this one, as well as the sequel that I just mentioned, and the Three Musketeers film, which has Charlie Sheen, Kiefer Sutherland, and, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the other guy who was Porthos. Give me one moment. I need to look it up. So you can see he was also in NCIS. Where are you? Oh yeah, also Vertical Limit, another good film. So just going to here. Oliver Platt. That was the guy. One other thing I want to mention before I go on any further here. So let me quit that. Is that they have the original modern, clean corporate take. So let me look that up for you guys real fast. I just had it. Give me a moment here. Okay, so this was the original one that they did. If you notice, it's kind of dull, oversimplistic, and the color scheme, it just doesn't work from my observation. So this was the first one that they did, and I noticed it was also on iTunes and whatever streaming services you guys use. This was the first one that they did. Now, recently, when I was showing you guys on Voodoo, this is the other attempt here. So you have that, and I'll show it to you guys here. This is what they went with. Again, simple, but at the same time, I won't lie, it's kind of lazy, in my opinion. It looks like somebody did like a Photoshop or just cropped out certain bits from the original, which is this, and then just superimposed it with this symbol. Does it work? A little bit. But honestly, to each their own. Now, I won't go over the entire film, just bits and pieces. But what do we know? So, the way how Two-Face becomes a, Two-Face is they show the accident or the attempt on his life through acid being thrown at him a little bit later. But it starts off with a bank heist. And, the lines Tommy Lee Jones was given for it, it's okay to an extent. But the way he looks, I don't know, it just seems a little over the top. But not only that, the design of the bat suit. It was okay, in my opinion. Now, when it comes to Batman, arriving at the scene, I like the dialogue between him and Dr. Meridian. So both are explaining about, what was going on, why Two-Face chose that bank. And they're explaining that it was on the anniversary of him being caught. And Dr. Meridian points out to Batman that she could write a paper for a guy who dresses up like a flying rodent. And then Batman replies, "Bats aren't rodents, Dr. Meridian." And so right when he's about to leave, she's like, "So do you have another name, or do I just call you Bats?" that line still sometimes gives me a good chuckle. I won't lie. And anyway, Two-Face does the whole iconic flipping of a coin with that card. And the way he reasons out, why certain things don't change, and that, the coin toss is the only means of, who's guilty and not. But by the time Batman arrives and he gets in the safe, the guard points out it's a trap. But the container exactly is rigged, and it fills up with acid. Although they kind of I don't know how they pulled it off, but what's amusing is that Batman takes the guard's hearing aid to try to undo the lock, and he does so. But one thing that I do like is that we sort of get the idea that Bruce knows Harvey Dent, and they were good friends and all that. But one thing that I really enjoy about the Riddler, at least in Jim Carrey's performance, is that I learned as a kid that Edward Nygma, despite being smart, has what we know as NDS. Now, if you're wondering what that means, it's narcissist dependency disorder. This character has a need or tendency to try to show off. And Jim Carrey's performance as the character, I would argue, he nailed Edward Nygma, but as the Riddler, to quote his character, was a little over the top. I can never tell. I mean, that's just him being Jim Carrey. Now, do I think it translates entirely to the Riddler? Depends who you ask. Now, I have come across debates on, which one does certain parts better. Whether it's the character before the transformation or what comes after. Again, depends on who you ask. Now, when it comes to the introduction of Robin, I will say this, that they did a really good job in terms of getting the details correct. The background and all that. Dick Grayson, he's a gymnast, like his family, the Flying Graysons. So when they do the charity event over at the circus, they got the background right. They got the appearance of the costumes right. Now, I will admit that Michael Gough, he did an awesome job as Alfred. No doubt about it. But one of the things I like about the film has to do a little later, and it's when Dick Grayson decides to steal a car. And what's amusing is the fact that Bruce gets a call from Alfred, and he has, you could say, the advanced version of, the smartwatch, if you will. Literally a smartwatch. But anyway, Alfred tells Bruce, "I'm sorry, sir, but it appears that Master Dick has run off. He's asking, what did he take? He said he took the he took the car, the other car, sir. And he's like, he lists the one that he has, like a Jag. I forget the other ones, but he says like, not that car, the other car. And then Bruce mentions there's another one, which wasn't it. He says, not that car, the other car. And it takes Bruce a while to figure out, oh, damn it. So I'll get to that part a little later. Again, I'm just bouncing around. But the interaction between Bruce and Dr. Meridian, I like the dynamic. And while it's interesting how Bruce kind of like pushes away at being, in a relationship and all that, what's good is the fact that they do give a hint at some of the previous films, particularly with Batman Returns. When Dr. Meridian uses the bat signal and Bruce berates her, says, the bat signal is not a pager, Dr. Meridian. And, she tries to seduce him and all. And she's like, I've done my homework and all that. And she brings up the whole, maybe I should probably wear a leather suit and a whip, in reference to Catwoman. That's the clue right there. But by the time Commissioner Gordon arrives, he's like, I saw the signal, what happened? And Batman replies, false alarm. And then leaves. But with regards to Dick Grayson, he does get, brought over to Wayne Manor and is shown around the place. But Dick, being a bit impulsive and young and wanting to do things a certain way, I mean, you could say he's a bit of a loose cannon, but he does kind of learn the hard way about, life in general. With that being said, I do want to share with you guys one of my favorite scenes and arguably one of the best well-written arguments against vengeance. And hopefully YouTube doesn't strike me on this because, like I said, you want proof that I own the damn thing? Again, here's proof. So, as someone aptly puts the quote, the quote from here, we're the same. So, let's go over this whole scene, shall we? And I apologize if the volume is not as loud as I try to make it.
What you think about every second of the day is getting two-faced. It took my whole life. When I was out there tonight, I imagined it was him that I was fighting. Even when I was fighting you. All the pain went away. Do you understand? Yes, I do. Good. Because you gotta help me find him. And when we do, I'm the one who kills him. So you're willing to take a life? Always is two-faced. Then we'll have it this way. You make the kill. But your pain isn't tied with Harvey's bruise. So we run out into the night to find another face. And another. Until one terrible morning you wake up and realize that revenge has become your whole life. And you won't know why. You can't understand. Your family wasn't killed by a maniac. Yes, they were. You're the same. That's what you're saying, Bruce. Help me. All right, train me. Let me
Okay, so I'm not going to play the entire thing, but as you can see, I have to say kudos to both actors and the scriptwriters for writing this outstanding scene regarding vengeance and killing. So, what Bruce is pointing out to Dick is that, yeah, kid, I've been there. I've been in your shoes. I've lost those that are close to me. And he's pointing out with that iconic segment. So you run off into the night looking for another face and another and another until one terrible morning you wake up and realize that revenge has become your whole life and you won't know why. So Dick's obsession with trying to kill Two-Face to get back at him for him killing his family. Basically, Bruce is telling him, so what? You take care of him. Then what? And it shows later on in the film. He says, exactly. Then you end up alone, like me. So, in summary, with that argument, Bruce is saying it's not worth it. Besides, I mean, I'm just kind of like adding on to here. He's saying, besides, he might end up pulling a fast one on you without you noticing it. And simply put, Dick was not thinking and he's not in his right mind. That much is clear. And when it comes to life lessons, there's a point that Dick tells Bruce that his dad told him a man has to learn to go his own way. And then Alfred kind of chimes in a little later, stating that young men need guidance. You, most of all, should know this. I'm paraphrasing that quote, but you get the point. And another scene that I like is when Alfred sees the helmet that Dick is holding, and it shows that of a robin. And so he explains that he saved one of his brothers once during an accident. And Alfred's telling Dick, despite what you went through, that, broken wings will mend in time. Robin will fly again. I promise. I'm kind of paraphrasing here from memory. But he is pointing out, Alfred's pointing out to Dick that grief is temporary. What you do from there is up to you. Now, when it comes to the climax of the film, I will say that while some jokes are dated, some parts of it are actually pretty good. Well, before I get to the climax, I'm kind of bouncing around here. When Bruce tells Dr. Meridian about the riddles that he's been getting, he refers to them as quote unquote love letters from somebody. Dr. Meridian is quote unquote telling Bruce that this person, whoever he is a total wacko. And that this person needs something to purge himself of this obsession. And so one of the riddles he's given has to do with something about red and black, and then he finds out that the answer to the riddle is a match. And then there's another one where I'm trying to remember the exact words. It had to do with, find these numbers on my face, and then it mentions the number 13, and then it's in reference to a clock. And then the third riddle had to do with I forgot what it was. But I remember one part of the riddle mentions about find them all in a tennis court. But as Bruce and Alfred are working together to solve the puzzle, the riddles, they find out that the numbers are in reference to the alphabet. And then eventually Bruce figures out the identity of Edward Nygma. Now, in terms of the whole detective aspect of it, one could make the argument that this one slightly touches on that. Although I don't know if I would say it's as messy, but I will say that the riddles on this one, compared to the modern Frankenstein attempt that only a certain percentage of Batman fans like, while most, including myself, disregard it, those ones are just childish compared to the ones from 1995. Let's be clear. This one was done better, the writing on the riddles. At least it causes the person to think, versus these other ones, arguably. Now, when it comes to the Riddler trying to convince Two-Face to join forces, there's a part that's a bit interesting where he's like, who are you and how'd you get in here? And, the Riddler's pointing out, you're actually kind of asking yourself the wrong question here. And you're wondering how I figured out the place. He then mentions about his little device. And then he's like, I'm kind of like going through bits of the film here. He's like, this is your mind on the box. And then this is my mind on a box. And he puts it on himself. And he's like, and this whole, the what comes next is kind of entirely Jim Carrey from my observation. He's like, does anybody feel like a fried egg? And the performance when it comes to him being the Riddler, I know I've said it already, but I find it okay for the most part. But in terms of the narcissistic aspect of it, I think Jim Carrey brings his own approach to it, despite the script that he was given. But some of the puns were like, okay. Like, take for example, right when Two-Face crashes the party of Edward Nygma as he's celebrating, getting past Bruce in terms of, you know, his bit of technology getting very popular with the masses and all that. There's a part in the film where Two-Face fakes his escape, and Batman literally, quote unquote, falls for it. And there's a line that Two-Face says called, I'm going to paraphrase here. He's like, nothing like a bad case of gas. And so one of his henchmen hits the valve for um, the gas valve. And of course, Two-Face lights it up. But Batman obviously survives that attempt. And he then tries to go with plan B, burying him in like several pounds of, I guess I could say, sand. But of course, Robin or Dick Grayson manages to save his life. And Bruce tries to berate him for doing that, being reckless. But Dick, again, being the hot-headed youngster that he is stubborn to a fault for a specific reason. But when Bruce gets knocked out and Dr. Meridian gets caught, eventually Bruce, or in this case Batman, has to accept the fact that he does need help. So when they are suiting up, after the Batcave does get destroyed, that's where we finally get to also see Robin in his actual suit. And when Batman asks, who's your tailor? Alfred points out, I took the liberties. And what I like about this interaction is that Robin's like, Two-Face and Riddler can be a very lethal combination. I figured you could use the hand. 2 against 2 does seem like better odds. And Robin's like, I can't promise you I won't kill Two-Face. A man has to go his own way. A friend taught me that. Not just a friend, a partner. And obviously, Bruce decides to take the Batwing. I don't know what it was called, but he takes the air, whereas Robin takes the boat. And so when they're going against Riddler and Two-Face, they have a silly mock-up of Battleship. Now, for those of us in the 90s who remember playing that game, I won't lie. I'll just say it right now. I kind of sucked playing that one back then. But it was fun nonetheless. And, we used to have board games back in the day before video games because it was like a family type thing. Now, when it comes to Robin facing Two-Face, I will say at least it was quick. And there's some parts that I do like in terms of the interaction there, where Two-Face is like, you're a man after our own heart. We'll see you in hell, boy. And then Robin extends a hand out. He's like, I'd rather see you in jail. And Two-Face is going like, it's being pulled up. Oh, good boy. Good boy. The bat has taught you well. Stupid. Noble, but stupid. And when Batman eventually goes to confront Riddler, obviously, I like how Bruce was able to figure out that you've now the Riddler is able to construct a device that's able to enable to read people's minds, because he also realized that it's also manipulating the mind. And um, the Riddler points out that all of the information from my device has enabled me to absorb a lot of information. And I'm just going kind of line by line to an extent. He's like, so if knowledge is power, then a god am I. And so he then reveals the two that were captured, Dr. Meridian and Robin, of course. But one of the things that was, I guess you could say, amusing is when he's asking Batman, who are you planning on saving? And Batman's like, there's no time for me to save them both. This whole place is one giant death trap. And obviously the Riddler's like, judges, I'm sorry, but your answer must be in the form of a question. Thanks for playing. And just as he is about to press the button to release them to a watery grave, Batman's like, wait, I have a riddle for you. He's like, really? For me? Tell me. I see without seeing. For me, darkness is the same as daylight. What am I? And I'm kind of paraphrasing the riddle here, but it's so easy that, Nigma's not impressed. He's like, police, you're as blind as a bat. And what Nigma doesn't realize is that as the riddle's being read, Batman already has his weapon at the ready. So by the time he finishes and then Nigma figures out the whole thing, that, the answer is a blind bat to the question, he's like, exactly. And he throws his batarang, shatters the device, and obviously, Riddler has a bit of, you could say, a mental meltdown. And he pushes the button and causes both of them, Meridian and Robin, to fall. Of course, Batman does save them. And before he confronts Nigma, he has to deal with Two-Face. And so he tells, Batman tells Dent, aren't you forgetting something, Harvey? Your coin. You're always two minds of everything. And it's at this moment where we briefly get a glimpse at Dent. And he's like, yes, you're right, Bruce. Emotion has always been the enemy of true justice. Thank you. You've always been a good friend. And so we find out that the whole never killing thing is one thing that is disregarded with this film. And so it's not Dick that kills him, you could say, but Batman, arguably, because as Harvey is flipping that coin, Batman has a bunch of other the same coins, and instinctively he tries to grab one, And of course, he falls to his death. And we find out that, the coin lands on heads. So then we get to the point where Edward's like, why can't I kill you? And Batman's like, poor Enigma. You see, I'm both Bruce Wayne and Batman. Not because I have to be, but now because I choose to be. And of course, I'm jumping a bit ahead here, but there's a point where he has a vial, as was shown on the little intro that I did, and he puts it in the chair that he's sitting in, and they find out that, someone has a fear of bats, which of course we get the famous question, riddle me this, riddle me that. What kind of a man has bats on the brain? So obviously when Bruce goes to pick him up, Enigma does freak out because he recalls the fear that Bruce Wayne has, and it is actually bats. And we get a brief reference to Arkham Asylum because, according to the notes on Amazon, this is the only film that introduces Arkham Asylum in terms of Gotham City, and then they bring it up again with the sequel Batman and Robin. And so when Dr. Chase asks Enigma about, who is Batman, she realizes that he's a wacko, and second, the identity of Bruce Wayne as Batman is safe. And, before she leaves, she tells Bruce, don't stay up too late. And of course, we get the final shot of, the bat signal and Bruce and Robin, running together onto their next adventure. So overall, what would I give this? Objectively, I'd give this, at best, 7.5 out of 10. Subjectively, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. Now, would I like to cover this with someone next year, considering it does turn 30, 2025, do the math. Arguably, I'd love to. But yeah, this has been Skyhound, also known as Geek Archivist Pierce. For all you Gothamites, again, happy National Batman Day. Stay safe, stay sane, and as my good friend Orange Hat would say, stay humble. Peace.